I'm Mark Edward Willows, and welcome to Gabbin Cabin. Today I have a very special guest, and I'm telling you, I am just looking at some of the stuff that this gentleman accomplished. You all probably know him as the host of Fox's, or former host, I should say, of Fox's
yeah.
show in the 90s, Mr. Ross Shafer. Ross, welcome to the program.
Mark, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am just looking at some of your accomplishments. I mean, talk show host, game show host, entrepreneur, written 9 books.
10 now, Mark.
10 now, yes, 10 now. How do you do it? Did you begin at 2 years old or what?
No, I'm kind of one of those relentless guys. I get bored easily, and I always want to accelerate whatever I'm doing. So I rather than wait around, I dive in.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you hosted the Fox show, that of course was in the 90s.
Yep.
And, it was really tough. I mean, you jumped in where you had Johnny Ed and all of them. How did that feel for you to take on such a challenge? I mean, did you have the jitters or no?
It's funny, Mark, I did not have the jitters because for the previous 5 years, I'd been doing a show that was very similar to that in Seattle called Almost Live. I had won a comedy competition, several of them actually, and then I got spotted by a local NBC affiliate, got a chance to produce and host my own show. And I've been a fan of Carson and even Alan Thicke and all of those TV hosts for most of my life. So I was getting to do that at a local level. And then when I had an agent, because I did stand-up comedy, and he got me into the Fox producers when Joan Rivers left the network, went down, flew in for an audition, and it felt like it was very comfortable for me. Just a bigger studio, bigger audience, but I had been practicing for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. What was one of your highlights that you could think of doing that show?
Was that the budget was unlimited. And I'll give you one example. If you're in local television and you want to have a guest, well, you'd have to fly in the guest, but you'd have to see, do we have $340 for a ticket? Yeah, well, we have $320. Okay, I got 10. And we get somebody it was all scrappy like that. At the Fox network, we thought, the Jamaican sled team would be kind of fun. So we fly in the Jamaican with their bobsled, all of them, and they're on the set with us. We got people out of jail. We did all kinds of, money was no object. So that was brand new.
Must be a wonderful feeling to work in that environment.
Huh? Oh, it was unbelievable to me.
Now, you started out as a stand-up comedian. How did all this come about? I mean, did you just get up one day and say, I want to be in the entertainment business? How did all of this come about for you?
No, you mentioned I was an entrepreneur. As a young man, I bought and sold bicycles and skateboards and motorcycle stuff like that. And then I after that decided to try that with businesses, and I bought and sold businesses out of bankruptcy. I did that until my mid to late 20s, and then I got bored and ulcers. And I went to a comedy club and I watched these comedians get up on stage to do this. And I thought, oh, this is so fun. And I think my jokes at parties are better than these. So I tried out on open mic nights, and I got some laughs. And I was pretty, I don't know, overconfident maybe because I'd already had careers. So I entered a comedy competition in 1983 or 81, didn't do very well. I had to learn the business. And so I took another 2 years to get it right. And then by 83, I won the international comedy competition, which gave me an agent, and it gave me entree to open for music acts. That's kind of how that came about. Pretty fast, actually.
Yeah. And I've interviewed some comedians over my years, and they tell me that is one of the toughest jobs in the entertainment business. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's tough, but isn't every job tough? Isn't your job tough? Isn't being a doctor a tough job? I think any job, I think for somebody who's working a job all day long, I don't care what the job is, and then you go to make strangers laugh. Yeah, it's hard. But,
that's right. Even if you're twisting ice cream cones at the Dairy Queen, it's tough. Yeah,
it's going to be difficult. But if you really take it seriously, learn how to do that job. And I paid attention. A lot of headliners came through Seattle playing the Comedy Underground. So I would make notes and I would talk to them. How do you get there? How do you develop material? How do you write material? How do you edit material? They were all very welcoming to a guy that was no threat. So I got kind of a fast education in it.
Yes.
I loved it. I just loved it.
Yes, and I was going to say you were very well educated and briefed in that area because I remember you on the Late Show. I probably remember the first show of the Late Show.
Oh,
And I
dude.
remember my family was sitting around and they were like, this guy's great. And I
Wow.
remember that it's just like you walked right into it. No nerves, no jitters, no nothing. And, you know, interviewing some of Hollywood's biggest stars, I would think you'd have a little fright somewhere down the line. And you just did excellent with
Well,
it.
I didn't, I have to go back to the practice that I had gotten in Seattle on NBC. It was I had interviewed and didn't really have stage fright by that point. And I'd seen a lot of stars backstage who were more nervous than I was, and I thought, oh, okay, I got an edge. Here. We'll have fun. I'll just tell them we're gonna have some fun out there. So I did it with Gregory Peck when I was in local television and local radio. He was very nervous, but I think getting over that hump and understanding that celebrities and actors particularly are people who recite the words of others and not too comfortable with themselves. And I was the opposite. So
exactly.
it was easier for me.
Yeah, being scripted is a lot different than sitting on a sofa next to someone and being questioned.
It is.
Yes. Now, when you started, Ross, in the business, I mean, obviously you're a success. Did you ever think it would go in that direction?
Go in the direction of television or go in the direction?
Yeah, in television, everything what you've accomplished in your life. I mean, did you think this is where?
Man, Mark, you're going to think I'm so arrogant when I tell you this. I just thought because of my dad was just one of those people who said, anything you want in this life is yours. Go after it. Don't wait for it. I believed it. I believed him. And so I just assumed that you wouldn't go into something if you didn't think you were going to be successful at it. And so that was kind of my approach, is that I went after it scientifically. What do I need to know? Where do I need to be? Who should I talk to? And I just thought that that's how it followed. And it worked out for me.
See, my folks did the same thing. And I'm a believer in that advice to a lot of people. Take, go after it. You want to do it? Go. What do you have to lose? And obviously you did it. And look at the success that you turned out to doing it. What advice would you give to young people? Would that be the advice? Go out, do it if you want, grab the gusto?
I think what the advice I would give young people is don't be deterred by the advice of other people. Other people will look at you and say, Mark, there's no way you should be doing this. Hey, take your regular job, get an insurance policy, just stick with it for 35 years, retire. They'll give you that kind of advice because they're not us. Nobody knows what drives you. Nobody knows what you're capable of except you, which also means you have to be the president of your own fan club, because it's not easy and there will be a lot of naysayers. I also believe that young people should follow their gut. I think that they should, if they're in a job that they're not successful in completing or striving for, get out. Just get out. It's not for you. Follow a hobby you have.
You and I, Russ, we think alike. I just said that to someone today. If you don't like your job, why are you doing it? Go after what is going to make you happy, make you successful, especially if that is your dream and that is what you want to do. You should go for it. And many young people don't. And sometimes they are railroaded by even family members. Forget it. You're not going to amount to none. Who would want to come see you? Blah, blah, blah. And they listen to that. And you are very right. You need to, as I always say, everybody needs to write their own chapter in their own book.
Well, it's really true. And if you're watching this, anybody's watching this, here's the test for you. When you wake up in the morning, are you happy to do what it is you do? Or are you trying to figure out ways to call in sick? If you're trying to figure out a way to call in sick, you need to get the hell out of that job.
Exactly. Every day you should be going to work and you should enjoy.
I think so.
It is that you are doing.
Because medical science is going to make this so that we won't be able to die even if we want to. We're going to be around a long time. You better like what you're doing.
Now, want to talk about some of your business ventures. I know you're an entrepreneur. You've been buying businesses, selling businesses. Can you tell us a little about that? And how did that come about?
Well, the way that came about is that was a friend of my father's, and I had started. I graduated from college with a business degree, and I had this job working for a surplus company, and I didn't like it very much. And I also thought my boss was an idiot. And I'm arrogant. I guess I'm arrogant. And I thought the people around were just biding time. And my dad's friend said, look, you don't have to work there. What do you want, your own company? I said, I'd love it, but I don't have any money. He said, you don't need any money. Go to the bankruptcy courts and sift through what has already failed. They'll give you a business. I said, really? At 21? Yeah, it's already a failure. You can't do anything wrong. So I did that in Tacoma, Washington. And the first thing that I picked up in the bankruptcy court was a failed stereo store. And it was a failure because the boss was stealing money. That I figured that out. So there was a little bit of debt. I accepted the debt. I went back. It already had a location where customers had already been coming to the specific location. So I almost had traffic right away. And I converted it from a stereo store to a stereo and pet store. And that was just enough to generate enough income all year round, not just stereos at graduation. And it gave me the confidence to think, oh, well, maybe I would go shopping at the bankruptcy court again. And so then I would go down and see what was available. A lot of things I didn't buy, but then there were some where I thought, God, this is the equipment's there, the location is there. I'm going to take a chance. So it was kind of a series. I really didn't have any money to start. I just had guts. But I think to this day you can still do it.
Yes. Now you mentioned being a college graduate. Do you think that has helped you in any way in your career?
It helped me. It helped me later on when I went back to business. It helped me in my comedy career because I didn't really get anywhere in comedy until I was almost 30 years old. So I wasn't a young kid and who was just thinking I'm going to be famous. I was pretty realistic, and I had a savings account, and I had a family with two kids, so I had to be responsible. So maybe the business side, maybe that right brain left brain balance helped me just be realistic about what would be successful and what wouldn't.
Now, when you did comedy, you probably started out these little small clubs all over the country. Where was one of the big places that you played that was sort of like, I made it?
Oh, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you exactly what that was. Because the comedy competition really helped. There were a lot of those bars and dives and strip joints and stuff like that. It was awful. It's awful. But then when I had some credibility with the comedy competition, then I would work at bigger places. And one of them was a state fair in Washington, in Puyallup, Washington, which was about 5,000 people opening for a Three Dog Night and Steppenwolf. And and I got paid $5,000 for a 20-minute set. And I just thought, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest career of my life. It wasn't, because what happened was that the Steppenwolf audience are bikers, and they wanted this, she's a pusher, and they wanted all this grindy motorcycle music. And I'm a clean cut guy, I'm telling my jokes about sweaters and cul-de-sacs. So it didn't go over very well. And they started pelting me with dimes, nickels, and quarters. But it emboldened me. And then the next big thing for me were working casinos, Harrah's and Caesar's Palace, opening for other bigger musical acts. And that was, oh my gosh, you got a cheese tray, Mark. This is the big time when you've got a stage and an audience full that the headliner brought. I didn't bring him. It was, I thought, okay, this is how it was supposed to be. And the comedy club experiences just kind of faded away.
Who were some of the people you opened for?
Diana Ross, Dionne Warwick, Nell Carter, Neil Sedaka, Cosby. There were a number of them. Crystal Gale. This is in the book. Crystal Gale.
And speaking of the book, this book, I have to tell you, here it is.
Rattled. There it is.
Rattled. I read the book today, and I've got to tell you, I was mesmerized. I was glued. It is an excellent book. And as it says, it is a combination of drama and comedy in this book. And Ross, I'm going to let you talk a little bit. I will tell you a little later what two of my favorite stories were in the book.
Sure.
But I want you to talk a little bit and tell the folks that buy the book what it is to expect out of it.
It's thank you for putting that up, because it's now available everywhere, Amazon and all the other bookstores. Rattled is it's about resilience. It's all of us have been rattled in one way or another. It could be work, it could be family, it could be relationships, it could be death. But how we are resilient and keep moving forward is what's important. And that's what the book is about. It was originally Allison and I wrote it for our children. Yes. But we have a lot of stories, adventures that I don't think a lot of people have.
Right. Do you think resilience should go hand in hand with life in general?
I do. And I don't know why it doesn't. Somewhere somebody told us that life was going to be easy, or once you get a corporate job, that the rest of it falls in place. And that is not true. I think that started with my parents' generation, where you go to work for IBM and then you retire from IBM 40 or 50 years later with a gold watch.
Right.
Now it's not the case. Now, there are young people now who have 6 or 7 jobs before they're 25 years old.
Right. And speaking of Allison, we need to mention her name is Allison Delvitt. And also she is a former TV news anchor, reporter. She has produced national shows.
Yes, she
and
has.
I love this. She flips homes. That's my kind of gal.
She's been doing that 25 years. Allison is brilliant. She's super smart. And she realized that having a career in broadcasting may not be able to accomplish in her life by putting her kids through. She has 2 daughters she put through college by herself. She's bought and sold all these homes by herself. It was her plan B that now has become her plan A. But she's extremely talented.
Let me ask you, Ross, how did this book come about? Did you just sit down with Allison? How did the stories come about? How did all of this develop?
Oh, really? Thank you for asking. It's a fun story. Allison and I had a blind date, and we were reluctant to go on this blind date. We had both been married before. We were done with relationships, but our realtor said, well, you guys have fun. You guys have fun together. 5 hours was how long the blind date lasted. And then it was 7 more dates in 14 days. And I started telling her about this idea I had for a book. And she goes, oh, that's fascinating. I said, yeah, I'm trying to come up with 2 words each for the titles that mean something that would lead into a story. And she said, can I write some of the titles? And I could give it a shot. I said, sure. The next day, there were 25 titles she had. Then she wrote 60 stories. And she's eclipsing my work ethic here. But they're good. And some of her stories, as you know, are from standing 51 days at the Waco standoff.
Yes.
There were the adventures that Allison has had are extraordinary and gritty. And it took her own resilience I honestly, I read the stories and go, okay, we have to do this together. We got to write this together. I don't know how we're going to get all of your stories and all of my stories in, but let's give this a shot.
Well, I have to tell you, without giving the story away, I loved her story, Trust in Yourself. And I think that is a story. It's about a gal by the name of Michaela. And I think that's a story everyone needs to read, because sooner or later in our lives, we are all faced down that path. It's not an easy path. And the story that Allison wrote, I mean, it almost brought tears to my eyes. It was fabulous. The ending, I mean, I'm sat there like, yay. And I'm not going to give it away. Buy the book to find that out, but a fantastic story.
I think we should, Mark, I think we should tell the story, or at least a part of the story. Okay. Because if you're watching this, it moved you, and everybody who reads it is moved by this. And the story is that she's very young. She has a little baby girl who's 2.5, 3 years old. And then it takes her a long time to get pregnant again, has fertility drugs. And when the baby is almost on its way, the doctor says there's a serious issue here. Your baby is dying. And encouraging Allison to abort the baby. And Allison's intuition kicked in, and she said, it's been too hard. I know that all these doctors and smart people want me to do this. I'm not going to do it. What do I need to do to keep this little baby alive as long as I can? And the doctor gave her a very strict regimen of water and Gatorade and laying down. And it was a mess. And then but Michaela stood by. Allison was dedicated. And then the emergency surgery came about, and we could stop, and I won't go into detail about that. Get the book and you'll hear word by word of what happened. Let me get to the chase though. Today, Michaela is 23 years old, graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder. She's brilliant, and she's in the medical industry.
Yes, that just blew me away.
She's beautiful and perfect in every way. And to this day, she, thanks God and intuition that she stuck with what she wanted, not what some professional told her to do.
Exactly. And, I've been down that road, little different story, but this was with an animal. I mean, they painted everything as bleak as could be. And I'm looking at this animal and I'm thinking, no way. I did everything in my power. Do you ready for this, Ross? He lived 13 years after. I could have said, I could have said right there, give him the needle. And I didn't. So like I says, yes, intuition is something, and that was a very moving story. And for you, I must mention, I loved your story with Bill Gates.
Oh yeah, that was
You
fun.
want to elaborate a little on that?
Sure, I will.
One?
Sure, I will. All right. So now I've said this like 3 or 4 times that I'm arrogant. I really don't think I'm arrogant. I think humility is the greatest trait any of us can have. But I was having a lot of success in television after being a stand-up comedian. And I lived in Seattle, was in the NBC affiliate, and I thought we're getting some fame for this Louie campaign to change the state song to Louie. And everybody seemed in Washington State and around surrounding states knew who we were. I think Bill Gates, we got to get Bill Gates on the show. He knows who we are. He must know who we are. And so it's not easy to get to Bill Gates. So I found a woman who knew another person who was friends with somebody I knew in school, and one thing or another, I end up in his office, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to pitch him, but I'm pretty cocksure. And so when I walk in thinking, hi, I'm Ross Shafer from Almost Live. And I don't even get all of that out. He looks up from his desk briefly and he goes, hey, Ross, be brief. I had nothing to say. I'm cutting and pasting in my head. What am I going to say now? And he goes, and I'm scrambling, and I can't put the words together. And he says, hey, thanks for dropping by. And then he leaves. Well,
Wow.
Consequently, he was never on my show because I didn't give a good pitch. Secondarily, he taught me that in life, we should be brief. The richest man in the world's kind of busy. So yeah, these people who change the world have got things going on. So get to the point, Sonny. And so that was my little encounter with him.
Well, I'm a graduate with journalism. And I mean, I remember I was taught that in journalism 101, it's you get to the point. It's the point of the story. As the heading, like they says, the headline tells it all, and that establishes if people will buy the paper or whatever. And yeah, that is very true. Just getting to the point. Now for the book Rattled itself, how long did it take you and Allison to compile everything?
Well, it took us almost a year and a half because COVID hit. And it actually was a pretty good, because COVID was 15 months for us. We had plenty of time to write it, rewrite it, rewrite it, cull down the stories that we wanted. The title changed a dozen times or more. And then it just kind of came together at the exact right time. So anybody that wants to write a book, please take your time. And writing is one thing, but editing is the most important. You got to be brief. Get all the extra words and sentences out of there.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because I did write a book, but mine was a children's book, and it is doing very well. It's called Silas and Sophie. I'm going to give it a plug.
I'm gonna write it, Silas and Sophie.
Silas and Sophie, and it's available at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all over too. That's my book. But that is true. We sit down, how we write it, got our thoughts together, the editing, and then of course for a children's book, the illustrations were critical.
Oh yeah,
finding a good illustrationist. I mean, I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, and believe it or not, she lives in the area where I live.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it really came out good, and it was nice. Now, let me ask you on your book, how did you and Allison, obviously you went over a lot of stories. How did you decide which stories will make the book?
You know, what we did do in the early stages is we sent some chapters out to trusted friends. And if they didn't finish the story, and they're not long stories, I think the stories are 1,200 words, maybe maximum. There are 30 in there. But if they say, I didn't get to it, or, I started it, but I didn't, we thought, not a good sign. We want to know which ones you'll read from beginning to end, or what would be a weak story that we could turn into a much stronger story, that kind of thing. So we did a little testing, but here's the tip, and you probably know this too. You can't go back to those same people and say, hey, would you read it again? Oh,
no, exactly.
no, they have no time for that.
Exactly.
No, they have no time.
Yeah.
So we kind of went, it was trial and error, but we also put in stories that we thought, this was originally intended for our children. We have 5 together. So which ones do we want them to read? And that was kind of the final arbiter.
And did you also find, like I did, this was my one book. You've written 9 previously, but as you know, when you write a book, it's not that easy because you are dealing with publishers and actually then the promotion end of it. You're sort of on your own in that area too. So there is an awful lot to writing a book, but yet, did you find that doing all the books you did sort of, for me, it was like therapy. I never knew that a child's book would be so much fun to write. But did you sort of find that to be like therapeutic for you?
I did. And as we talked earlier, I didn't go into this thinking it was going to fail or that any of the books would fail. I just knew that I had a project, I had to finish it. And when you write business books, which I did quite a few, you have a deadline and it has to fit something you would talk about in a corporate audience. But I was always gratified when I saw it show up finished at my house. It was kind of a miracle moment for me that, it's like a term paper. I really did finish the term paper and I got it back. So yeah, but it's not easy, as you know. It isn't easy. People say, how do you write a book? And you would probably tell them the same advice, just one word at a time, one sentence at a time.
That is exactly it. And even with a children's book, it's a smaller book, short, but it's one word at a time and you put it together. And my case, this is about a boy and the love for his dog. So it's a very good story. And like I said, and it's everything that goes with it, but I enjoyed it. Now,
so let me ask you a question about writing that book. Did the book at the end, when you were done writing it, was it still the same book that you started with, or did the book evolve to end differently?
It evolved a little bit. There were some changes. We also wrote it at the last minute. We thought we wanted to make it, and we haven't done it yet, but it still could be a continuing series.
Oh, nice.
Of the boy and the dog. So, we thought, I don't want to give away either lot, but we did think of, as the dog gets older, maybe he passed away, it's the puppies carry on, and the story would start evolving. And of course, the little boy is older, and maybe we thought we could have him go and become a veterinarian. And it could go in all different directions. And when I discussed that with the publisher, that's what they loved. Like they says, when you write a book, you always have to have some kind of avenue somewhere where you want this to go, not just dead end. And we did it, and it's a love story. All I could tell you, without giving the story away, and we ended it this way: they go off hand and paw together forever.
That's cute. Silas and Sophie.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now, let me ask you: is there ever going to be a Ross Shafer memoir on the horizon?
I hope I live long enough to say that. I think I don't know. You know what it's like when you start a book, or then what it seems to happen is you've got another book in mind. Then you have another book.
Oh yeah,
there's exactly. The one I've talked to authors and writers all the time. They go, "What's the book you didn't get to? What's the one you always wanted?" And they can tell me like that. They always know. Oh, I know I have to finish this. I have to do this one, and then I'm going to do that one. So yes, I hope that there is. I hope that there's another few. I don't know, but I have to be lit up. That feeling.
Exactly. It is funny, but what do you think it is about when you write one, you want to write another? Why is that? I'm that same way.
I think that we're just we have imagination. We have a fertile mind. There are things that we still want to say. Or, my friend George Miller, a comedian who I dearly love, my best friend, he's gone now, but people would ask George, he'd been on the Tonight Show 50 times. George, my God, how do you think of material? And George would look at people like they were dumb and say, life. And it is true. Life changes, things change. New opportunities will always come up. If you stay alert to life, you will learn and want to talk about new things.
Love that. And Ross, I'm so honored. Thank you for being on the show. Once again, we want to show it. Rattled is
Thank
the
you.
book, and it is available, Ross, where? Tell everybody.
Everywhere. It's at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any bookstore. If you just enter the word rattled into your browser, you'll find us.
Okay. And if the folks want, do you do autographed copies for anybody?
Sure. They can get autographed copies at my website, which is rossshafer.com.
Okay. And before we let you go, what does the future hold?
Well, Allison and I are engaged. And so that
Well, congratulations there.
that was a blind date that changed our lives. We don't have a date, but we are very committed to each other, and so I'm sure that whatever happens now, we'll be able to do together. She also manages my speaking career. She's my agent for that. So whatever we do, we hope to travel, have fun, and meet more people.
And enjoy life and maybe write more books.
That's right. That's right.
Ross, thanks a lot. It was a
My
pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you, Mark.